Beginner's Guide to Hydrangea Care, Lazy Gardener's Guide to Hydrangeas. Hello friends, and welcome back to Earthly Delights. If you've ever walked past a garden filled with clouds of hydrangea blooms and wondered, could I ever make that happen in my own space? Then this video is for you. Hydrangeas look like the kind of plant that requires endless time, energy, and know-how, but the truth is surprisingly different. They are one of the most forgiving, low-effort plants you can grow, making them the perfect companions for people just like you, busy professionals juggling work and family. Retirees who want a garden that gives back without constant labor, or apartment dwellers dreaming of beauty on a balcony without daily fuss. In today's beginner's guide, I'll show you how hydrangeas can thrive with very little effort while still rewarding you with breathtaking blooms year after year. Think of this as a lazy gardener's secret weapon: minimal watering, almost no pruning, and soil that paints your flowers in shades of blue, pink, or purple, all with less work than you'd expect. So settle in, picture your future garden, and let's start this journey together. And before we dive deeper, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and join the Earthly Delights community, where beauty and simplicity always bloom side by side. Part 1. Finding the right hydrangea that fits your life. When people think of hydrangeas, they often imagine one single type: big round blooms that change color with the soil. But the truth is, there are several kinds of hydrangeas, and choosing the right one is like choosing the right companion for your lifestyle. If you've ever struggled to keep plants alive because of your busy schedule, or if you simply want beauty without daily chores, the variety you pick will make all the difference. Let's start with the big leaf hydrangea, the one most gardeners recognize. These are the dramatic showstoppers, producing large blue, pink, or even purple flowers depending on your soil. They love attention, but don't worry, they don't need it every day. With just the right balance of water and shade, they'll reward you with blooms that look like they came straight from a painting. If you're the type who enjoys color variety and wants to experiment a little with soil magic, big leaf hydrangeas will keep you entertained. Then there's the panicle hydrangea, sometimes called paniculata. This one is for the gardener who lives in hotter summers or wants something tougher. Panicles can handle more sun and less pampering, making them ideal for anyone who admits, "I sometimes forget to water." Their flowers transform through the season, starting creamy white and slowly turning blush pink, almost like watching time itself paint your garden. For those who love a rustic woodland charm, oak leaf hydrangeas are the choice. They're not just about summer blooms. Their leaves turn brilliant shades of red and orange in autumn, adding a second season of beauty. This makes them perfect for viewers who want their garden to change with the year, offering a little surprise in every season. And finally, the climbing hydrangeas, the hidden gems for small space gardeners. If you live in an apartment with a wall, trellis, or even a sturdy balcony railing, these climbers will turn plain vertical spaces into a living tapestry of green leaves and lacy white blooms. For those of you who have limited ground but unlimited imagination, this variety might feel like the perfect fit. The beauty of hydrangeas is that there's no single right answer. It's about matching your plant with your pace of life. Whether you're after a splash of color, a heat-resistant survivor, a year-round beauty, or a climber for creative spaces, there's a hydrangea that fits exactly who you are. And when you find that match, gardening no longer feels like a chore. It becomes an easy partnership with nature. Now that you've met these personalities of the hydrangea world, let's talk about how to give them the best home from the very start, because choosing the right location is the first step toward a truly effortless garden. Part 2. Choosing the perfect spot for effortless growth. Once you've chosen the hydrangea that matches your lifestyle, the next step is deciding where it will live. This decision may seem small, but for the lazy gardener, it's the secret to making hydrangea care nearly automatic. A plant in the right spot will almost take care of itself, while a plant in the wrong place can leave you frustrated and constantly adjusting. Hydrangeas thrive on balance. They adore light, but not too much. Think of them as friends who love to bask in the morning sun, yet retreat when the afternoon heat grows intense. If your garden receives soft sunlight early in the day, with a little shade to shield them later, you've already created the perfect environment. In cooler regions, they can handle more hours of direct sun, But in hotter climates, they'll thank you for a little protection from scorching rays. The soil beneath them is just as important as the light above. Hydrangeas need soil that holds moisture without drowning their roots. Imagine a sponge that feels damp but never soggy. That's the goal. If your ground tends to stay wet, adding organic matter or planting on a slight mound can save you from the headaches of root rot. For those of you with busy schedules, a layer of mulch does wonders. It keeps the soil cool, locks in water, and cuts down on how often you'll need to water. Placement also affects how your hydrangeas will look in the bigger picture of your garden. Planting them in clusters of 3 to 5 creates a natural rhythm, almost like a chorus of blooms singing together. Even if you don't have time for fancy landscape designs, hydrangeas grouped in this way create a bold, dramatic impact that makes visitors think you spent hours planning. And for those of you working with smaller spaces, balconies, patios, or modest backyards, containers are a simple solution. A well-placed hydrangea in a pot can brighten up a corner, frame an entryway, or soften the lines of a deck. The beauty of container planting is that you can move them around, chasing sunlight in spring, or tucking them into a sheltered corner when winter winds arrive. By taking just a little care in choosing where your hydrangeas will grow, you remove most of the work down the line. It's the lazy gardener's dream. Let the location do the heavy lifting. And once the spot is chosen, the next natural step is learning how to water without worry, because with hydrangeas, less really can be more. Part 3, watering without worry. Now that your hydrangea has found its perfect home, the next question that often worries new gardeners is watering. Many people assume these plants demand constant attention, but that's not the truth. In fact, hydrangeas are far more forgiving than their lush blooms might suggest. Once they are established, a simple rhythm of watering just once a week is usually all they need. For anyone who has ever forgotten a watering can on a busy day, this should feel like a relief. Picture this. You've had a long week, work has kept you late, and the garden hasn't been on your mind. You step outside, notice your hydrangea looking a little droopy, and panic sets in. The good news is hydrangeas are resilient. A few days of consistent watering, and those leaves perk back up as though nothing ever happened. It's a quiet reminder that plants, like people, can bounce back from neglect with just a bit of care. If you're growing big leaf hydrangeas, they will reward you best when watered weekly, especially during hot spells. Newly planted hydrangeas, however, are like children learning to stand on their own. They need a little extra help. In their first year, water them 2 to 3 times a week until their roots have settled deeply into the soil. After that, they join the rhythm of once-a-week watering, making them as easygoing as any plant in your garden. For the truly busy or forgetful gardener, there are even lazier ways to stay consistent. A layer of mulch will keep soil moist for longer, meaning you can stretch out the time between waterings. Self-watering stakes and simple drip systems take the guesswork away entirely, turning what could be a chore into a hands-off routine. These small tricks free up your time while still giving your hydrangeas the care they need. The truth is, watering hydrangeas doesn't have to feel like another item on your endless to-do list. With the right habits and a few clever shortcuts, you can keep them thriving without constant worry. And once watering is mastered, the next step in effortless hydrangea care is feeding them. Because just like us, they don't need much, but the right nourishment at the right time makes all the difference. Part 4. Feeding your hydrangeas the easy way. When it comes to nourishment, hydrangeas remind us that sometimes less truly is more. Many new gardeners fall into the trap of thinking more fertilizer equals more flowers. But hydrangeas don't work that way. In fact, overfeeding them can lead to leafy green bushes with very few blooms. That's why the lazy gardener's approach is not only easier, but often more successful. Feed them just once a year and let nature do the rest. The best time to fertilize is in the early spring, right before the season's growth begins. A simple, balanced fertilizer, or even better, a slow-release organic option, will give your hydrangeas everything they need for months. Imagine it like preparing a big meal that keeps them satisfied all season long. No constant refills required. If you're someone who doesn't want to fuss with complicated schedules or stacks of garden products, this approach makes Hydrangea Care refreshingly simple. For those of you who already keep a compost pile, here's an even lazier secret. A layer of compost spread around the base of your hydrangeas not only feeds them but also works as mulch to keep the soil moist. That means one action covers two jobs. Busy professionals, retirees who'd rather enjoy the view than the chores, and anyone who wants results without the grind can appreciate how little effort this really takes. The beauty of hydrangeas is that they never punish you for being practical. Even if you miss a feeding, they'll continue to grow, though perhaps with fewer blooms. And if you stick to this simple once-a-year routine, they'll repay you with lush flowers that make your garden look like it's had hours of expert care. With water and food taken care of in such an easy rhythm, you might wonder what's next. Many gardeners stress about pruning, worrying that they'll cut too much or too little. But here's the secret. When it comes to hydrangeas, pruning doesn't need to be complicated at all. In fact, sometimes the laziest approach is also the most beautiful. Part 5, Pruning Made Simple. Less is truly more. Pruning is one of those words that makes new gardeners nervous. You picture complicated diagrams, sharp shears, and the fear of accidentally cutting off next year's blooms. But here's the truth about hydrangeas. They don't demand perfection. In fact, they thrive even when you do almost nothing at all. That's why they're a dream for anyone who calls themselves a lazy gardener. If you never touch a pair of pruning shears, your hydrangeas will still come back year after year, filling your garden with blooms. The dried flower heads left behind can even add a kind of winter charm, standing like frosted ornaments against the cold air. But if you'd like to tidy them up, the simplest approach is to trim only the dead wood and faded flowers in late winter or early spring. Think of it less as pruning and more as a little light housekeeping, removing what no longer serves the plant so it has room to flourish. Different varieties do have different habits, and here's where a small note of attention helps. Some hydrangeas bloom on old wood, which means their flower buds are formed on stems from the previous year. Cut too much of those stems, and you risk losing the very blooms you're waiting for. Others bloom on new wood, sprouting flowers on fresh growth each spring, making them more forgiving if you trim too heavily. The easiest way to remember? If in doubt, do less. Your hydrangeas won't mind, and they'll thank you by returning stronger. For many of you watching, whether you're balancing work deadlines, caring for family, or simply preferring a calm garden over constant labor, this minimal approach is liberating. Hydrangeas prove that you don't need to micromanage every detail to have something beautiful thrive in your care. So let go of the pressure, enjoy the effortless elegance of their natural form, and trust the plant to do much of the work for you. And once you've embraced the idea that pruning is optional, it opens the door to something truly magical. Learning how to change the very color of your blooms, almost as if your garden were painting itself. Part 6, Playing with Colors, Turning Soil into a Paintbrush. One of the most enchanting secrets of hydrangeas is their ability to change the color of their blooms, almost as if your garden were a living canvas. Unlike many flowers that are locked into one shade, hydrangeas respond directly to the soil they grow in. This means you, the gardener, lazy or not, get to hold the paintbrush. With just a few simple tweaks, you can guide your flowers to glow in shades of dreamy blue, romantic pink, or even soft lavender. Here's how the magic works. Acidic soil produces blue flowers, while alkaline soil brings out pink. If your soil sits right in the middle, you'll often find yourself blessed with a mix of purple hues, a kind of happy compromise that looks like nature couldn't make up its mind. The beauty of this process is how forgiving it is. Adding pine needles, coffee grounds, or a soil acidifier nudges your hydrangeas toward blue. Sprinkling lime gently shifts them toward pink. And if you decide to simply leave things alone, the plant will surprise you with its own version of beauty. Think about what that means for you as a gardener. You're not locked into one look year after year. You can experiment, play, and let your personality show through your blooms. For the busy professional, it might be enough to enjoy whatever shade the soil naturally provides. For the creative dreamer, it's a chance to transform the garden season by season, like changing the palette of a painting. The most important thing to remember is that this transformation doesn't happen overnight. It's gradual, unfolding over weeks or even months, reminding us that patience is part of the art of gardening. And in that patience lies the joy. You're not just growing flowers, you're crafting a living masterpiece. Once you've discovered the power of color, it's easy to see hydrangeas not just as plants, but as storytellers in your garden. And as every season passes, their story continues. That's why the next step is learning how to guide them gently through the changes of the year, caring for them in each season without adding extra work to your plate. Part 7. Caring for hydrangeas through the seasons. Every plant has its rhythm, and hydrangeas are no different. They move with the seasons, and once you understand their cycle, you'll see just how little effort it takes to keep them happy year-round. For the lazy gardener, this is a gift. Simple seasonal habits that give you more blooms and less stress. Spring is the season of awakening. This is when your hydrangea shakes off the chill of winter and begins to send out fresh shoots. A light tidy up of any dead stems is often enough to set the stage for growth. If you've been waiting to add compost or that one dose of fertilizer, spring is the time. It's like giving your plant a hearty breakfast before a long day. As summer arrives, the real show begins. Blossoms swell and open, turning your garden or patio into a stage of color. This is the season where consistent watering pays off, especially during dry spells. For many of you who juggle full schedules, this is also the time to lean on mulch or watering hacks to stretch the moisture longer. The reward is weeks upon weeks of flowers that almost feel endless. When autumn rolls in, hydrangeas offer a second gift. Certain varieties, like oakleaf hydrangeas, turn their foliage fiery shades of red and gold. Even as blooms begin to fade, the plant still gives you beauty in another form. Some gardeners snip the flowers to dry them indoors, letting those papery blooms decorate the home for months. It's yet another reminder that hydrangeas don't stop giving once summer ends. Then comes winter. Here's where the lazy approach truly shines. You don't need to wrap or fuss over them. Simply let the plant rest. The dried blooms left on the stems add character to a bare garden, catching frost and snow like nature's ornaments. When spring returns, your hydrangea will already be preparing for its next act, with or without your help. This steady rhythm across the seasons makes hydrangeas feel less like a chore and more like a partnership with nature. And once you see how easily they adapt through the year, it becomes clear why they're such faithful companions. But hydrangeas don't just stand alone, they also shine when planted alongside other friends in the garden, making your space feel even more abundant with very little extra effort. Part 8. Hydrangeas as effortless companions in the garden. One of the joys of gardening is discovering how plants complement each other, and hydrangeas are masters at playing well with others. They aren't just solo stars, they bring out the beauty of the entire garden. For the lazy gardener, this means you don't have to design an elaborate landscape. Just place hydrangeas among a few good companions, and nature will handle the rest. Think of how hydrangeas pair with shade-loving plants like hostas and ferns. Their broad leaves and unique textures create a natural stage where hydrangea blooms shine like spotlights. Together, they build a lush, layered look that seems intentional, even if all you did was plant them side by side. For those of you with little time to plan every detail, this kind of pairing creates beauty without complexity. Hydrangeas can also serve practical roles. When planted in a row, they form living borders that soften fences or create privacy screens around patios. Imagine sitting outdoors on a summer evening surrounded by walls of flowers that not only add color but also carve out a peaceful corner just for you. It's elegance that doesn't demand constant trimming or upkeep. And for small space gardeners, hydrangeas are just as generous. Grown in containers, they can be moved to wherever you need color most. Place one by the front door to welcome guests, or tuck it onto a balcony where it transforms a simple railing into a mini oasis. Their adaptability makes them feel almost like teammates, working alongside you, not against you. Another quiet gift is that hydrangeas rarely suffer from critters. Rabbits, deer, and squirrels usually leave them alone, which means you won't spend hours protecting them. For anyone who's ever felt frustrated by pests undoing hard work, hydrangeas offer a kind of peace. When you see how easily hydrangeas fit into your space, whether sprawling gardens or city balconies, it's easy to understand why so many people fall in love with them. They are plants that give far more than they take. And as with every relationship, sometimes a few small problems do appear. But with hydrangeas, the solutions are often as simple and forgiving as the plant itself. Part 9. Solving problems the lazy gardener's way. Every gardener, no matter how experienced, will eventually face little surprises. A leaf that droops, a flower that fails to open, a corner of the garden that doesn't look quite right. With hydrangeas, these moments can feel worrying at first, but the truth is that most problems have simple, gentle fixes, and often patience is all that's required. Take wilting, for example. It's one of the most common sights with hydrangeas, especially on a hot afternoon. Many new gardeners panic thinking their plant is dying, but in reality, hydrangeas are simply sensitive to heat. Give them water and a bit of shade, and by the next morning, those leaves usually spring back as if nothing ever happened. It's a reminder that these plants are more resilient than they appear. Sometimes you may notice brown edges on the leaves. This is often a sign of too much sun rather than a disease. Moving a potted hydrangea to a gentler spot or offering a little extra mulch at the base is usually enough to solve the problem. And if your hydrangea doesn't bloom one year, don't lose heart. It could be the result of pruning at the wrong time, or simply the plant focusing on building stronger roots before rewarding you with flowers the following season. Unlike many other garden plants, hydrangeas rarely suffer from pests or major diseases. Deer tend to ignore them, insects leave them alone, and you won't often find yourself battling infestations. For anyone who has ever struggled to keep plants safe, this freedom feels like a blessing. The real secret to handling hydrangea problems is embracing their forgiving nature. They don't expect perfection from you. They ask only for a little attention now and then, and in return, they give you resilience, beauty, and patience. For busy people, retirees, or anyone who wants to enjoy their garden without endless worry, hydrangeas become a gentle reminder that even when things go wrong, nature has a way of setting itself right. And as you learn to trust this partnership, you begin to see why so many gardeners call hydrangeas the perfect plant for a stress-free garden. Which brings us to the final chapter of their story. Why these blooms hold such a special place in the hearts of lazy gardeners everywhere. Why hydrangeas belong in every lazy gardener's garden. And so we come full circle. From choosing the right variety to finding the perfect spot, from watering with ease to pruning less than you thought possible, hydrangeas prove time and again that beauty doesn't always come with heavy work. They are generous plants, forgiving of missed waterings, patient when we forget to feed them, and always ready to surprise us with colors that feel almost magical. For the busy professional longing for calm at the end of the day, for the retiree who wants a garden that blooms without endless chores, and for the dreamer who craves beauty even in a small balcony pot, hydrangeas are the gentle companions that fit seamlessly into your life. As you watch your own plants grow, you'll notice something else. Hydrangeas don't just transform your garden, they change how you feel in it. They remind you that nature doesn't need to be forced or micromanaged. Sometimes the most powerful act of gardening is simply giving space, adding a little water, and letting time work its quiet magic. Now, I'd love to hear from you. What color of hydrangea do you dream of filling your garden with? Deep blue, soft pink, or romantic purple? Share your answer in the comments below because your story might inspire someone else to start their own journey. And if you found this guide helpful, don't forget to subscribe to Earthly Delights for more simple, soulful ways to grow beauty at home. Together, we're building a community where gardening feels less like work and more like joy.